Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. I hope that all of you have been doing well amidst the current health scare and crisis that's been going on globally. I pray that God is giving you a supernatural peace about this situation and that you are in a safe and secure place surrounded by family or friends, or at least in communication with family and friends that you can reach out to and check in on and have some kind of communication with during this uncertain time. And that's actually something that I wanted to talk to you about today, is something that we can be preparing for in the middle of this crisis. Now, I know that a lot of us are stuck at home. If you're an essential worker like a nurse or a doctor, I thank you for your service. I know that you're doing a lot right now to be able to impact your community wherever you are right now. But what I wanted to talk about today is what we, the non-essential workers, the believers that are at home right now, maybe you're working from home or maybe you've been laid off or furloughed. One thing I'd encourage you to do right now is to take the time that you do have outside of your work to be able to spend in the secret place with the Father and to be able to grow as a believer. And I believe there's something that we can turn into and actually end up becoming a product of by the end of this season, however long it lasts. Prayerfully sooner, being completed sooner rather than later. I would like to be able to see more believers come out of this seeing the fruits of the Spirit being so evident in each of our lives. With that being said, I want to be able to emphasize a specific teaching that I've heard kind of mixed in with a bunch of different teachings I've heard over the course of my life, and something that God convicted me about a while ago and something that He's recently convicted me about putting on this YouTube channel. So here we go. Today I want to talk to you about the difference of being a thermometer as well as a thermostat in the rooms that you enter. I'm sure you've heard messages similar to this. There's a ton of accounts that you can read about in the book of Mark and other gospels as well, where you read about how Jesus, when he walks into a room and he starts sharing the message of the kingdom of God, that everyone around him is amazed and astonished at the authority with which he speaks. And I believe that we as believers have been given that authority by Jesus, as it says in the Great Commission. So when we're talking about that kind of authority when we walk into a room, I want to encourage you that it takes the ability to be able to be A, a thermometer, and B, a thermostat. So first, going off and talking about a thermometer, what do I mean when I'm talking about being a thermometer as a Christian? Well, what I'm talking about in terms of being a thermometer is actually being a believer that goes out and goes into places, whether it's your workplace, whether it's places that you're shopping in grocery stores or the mall or whatever, wherever you end up going. Maybe you're visiting someone's house. Nonetheless, when you go into those places, it's you having the spirit of discernment to be able to walk into the room and assess the spiritual situation that's going on there. When we have the eyes to be able to see what's going on in the situation in the room spiritually, we're able to see what Jesus is able to do through us and in us when we step into those situations. Yes, maybe the room seems happy and jovial, but how are you going to bring Jesus into the middle of that room and into that situation? Maybe the situation in the room you're stepping into is sad and morbid. Then how are you going to bring Jesus into the situation and bring His hope and bring His joy into the situation? It's really important that we learn what it means to discern spirits. The Bible even emphasizes this in 1 John 4:1. When we're talking about discerning the spirits, we have to be able to go into these situations, whether it's a friend's house or someone that we've just met for the first time. Maybe we're at a party or an event, or maybe we're going into the mall, or we're going into a store, or maybe we're going to work. Being able to assess the spiritual atmosphere that's going on around you is very important as believers, because you've been given the authority to be able to walk into that situation and bring Jesus into each of those situations. So I'd encourage you, as you're going through this season of preparing for the season after all of this quarantining and social distancing and shelter-in-place orders, I encourage you, use this time to pray to God and ask you to give you a discerning spirit, so that way when you walk into those rooms and into those situations when we're actually allowed to be in the same space again, I believe that God's going to give you the eyes to be able to assess what's going on in the room and how you can bring Him into the situation to give Him glory. Part B of what I really wanted to talk about today was talking about what it means to be the thermostat. Now, when I talked about being a thermometer in the previous section, part A, what I'm saying is we have the ability to gauge what's going on in the room. A thermometer is able to tell you the temperature of what it's like in the room. But when we're a thermostat, we're able to change the temperature of the room. And when we're, as believers, going into those situations that may have a negative aspect to them. Maybe there's hopelessness, maybe there's doubt, maybe there's confusion, maybe there's fear. We're able to enter into those places and bring that hope, bring that faith, bring that joy into those areas that need it. And more specifically, bring Jesus' joy, bring Jesus' hope, bring Jesus' ultimate peace into those situations. Because ultimately, we have the authority to be able to speak that authority, to be able to speak on the authority that Jesus has given us, to be able to go out and act as his representatives, as his hands and feet into situations and scenarios and places that we go to. And so I encourage you, don't only seek to be someone who's able to discern what's going on inside of a room, but be someone who's willing to say, hey, I want to be able to change the attitude of this room to be focused towards Jesus. I want to be able to focus the attention in this room to be able to say, no longer do I have to live under a spirit of fear or confusion or of hopelessness. I can walk in and see the room change its attitude immediately. It kind of reminds me of a time when I was younger, when I would hear some pastors and some teachers talking about what it means to see someone when they walk into a room and it's almost electric, like everything changes, everybody's mood changes. And I know maybe you haven't experienced that before, but I can promise you situations like that can and will happen. I promise you, whether someone knows you're a follower of Jesus or not, if you've been spending time in the secret place with him, and if you've been spending time intimately getting to know him and his word, and you're studying him and able to understand, yes, like I am going to act as his representative wherever I go. I'm going to be the hands and feet of Jesus wherever I step into. Then you realize, wait a minute. I can change situations that are going on in rooms. No longer are we having to serve those evil and in some cases sinful situations that are going on, but we can turn it around and say, God, I give you the authority to just move around and in my life, and just pray your presence just moves into the people that are going to be interacting with me. And I can promise you, whether those people recognize it or not, they're going to recognize that something is different about you. And that something is going to draw them in, and it's going to be giving you the opportunity to be able to share the gospel with them and to be able to speak Jesus into their lives. So I pray that when you're talking about spending time with God during this time period where we're social distancing and quarantining and all that, I want you to know that you have the opportunity to do two things. Pray that God gives you a discerning spirit to be able to move. And then two, pray that God gives you the faith and the boldness to be able to move and act courageously, so that way you can act towards changing the attitude and the atmosphere of the rooms that you step into. So I know it seems kind of funny thinking of yourself as a thermometer and a thermostat, but here's the thing. When you move in the authority of Jesus, when you operate under his guidance, when you operate according to his word, I want you to know that you are unstoppable. Because the thing is, with God, all things are possible. We know that is from his word, but we also know that he's the one who gives us the peace that surpasses all understanding. We don't have to worry about what men think of us or what women think of us or whatever. We can worry about what God of the universe, what he says we are and how he defines our identity, not what other people will think about us just because we're sharing his word and his message of love, peace, and forgiveness. Anyway, I wanted to share that to encourage you during this kind of uncertain time. I'm praying that God will just show you that he has certainly got you in his hand and that he's going to protect you. I believe that God's got a great plan that's going to come out of this. I believe he's going to work this out for the best good that we could never really imagine right now. And we're going to look back on this and we're going to say God was doing an amazing work during that time period, and we came out of it in a way that we could have never imagined. And so I hope that this video encouraged you. If there's a topic that you'd like me to cover while we're in quarantining right now, leave that down in the comment section down below and I'll make sure to get back to it as soon as possible. Anyway, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you go ahead and do it. And if you don't have any questions or any comments, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until next time, be blessed.